to it. And then
If that's not it, try some new.
All right, so I am here today to tell you about the round goby in the Finger Lakes region, and this is going to be the story about how this little guy invaded. So, for a little background, for most people that may know about the gobies, may not, they came from the Black Sea, Pondo-Caspian area, but recent genetic tests have narrowed down to a subpopulation in the Black Sea that was the originating population. And then they also have descendant mussels in that region too, which, as you can see, are located throughout the Pondo-Caspian, as well as Michels and Susan, aka the bloody red shrimp, another invasive. And these, of course, are all in the Great Lakes, and according to Ricciardi and Geislich in, I believe, 2000, they refer to it as the invasion meltdown hypothesis. So it's basically a melting pot of invasive species. So here we are in the world map, and they came all the way over to the Great Lakes in the St. Lawrence Basin through transoceanic shipping in the ballast water. And because they are more of a nocturnal species and have a highly developed lateral line sensory system, they were able to survive the nice dark ballast water quite reasonably. So they came through, and then through their way, they made their way down all the way to the Finger Lakes region. And then from here, we can see, that is not, there we go. So, here's an Ida Lake, which has also been invaded. Onondaga, which is mostly suggested to be, / is. There was a newspaper article that I found, but there was no actual literature that I could find on Onondaga Lake. And then Owasco, which is technically listed as potentially. Cayuga Lake, which does have a steady population, and Seneca Lake, which was a unknown before I got there as well, for my research. So, what are gobies going to do potentially? This is just a quick little diagram suggesting what you really see as changes. As you can see, the bass population gets a little bit larger because they have faster growth rates. As you can see, and it was listed in Steinhardt et al. 2004. And then yellow perch stay about the same. They have been found to eat round gobies occasionally. Lake trout are somewhat declining because of egg predation mainly. Their sizes are fluctuating because some are able to recover from thiamine deficiencies because round gobies are lower in thiaminase. Dracenids do take a little bit of an impact because, of course, round gobies consume the hell out of them already. And then the benthic macroinvertebrates, they stay relatively similar, but they do have a heavy impact on the ground, especially in streams. But the biggest thing is the native species, such as the tessellated darter and other darters and sculpins, are most affected because they are displaced by the round goby typically, as you can see in the situation where they don't have it. So, here's my research roadmap. Basically, we wanted to sum up the impacts of the round gobies, but more generally and more specifically really, it is what is new impacts that nobody really knows about. So, the first thing we wanted to do was check, are round gobies really present in Seneca Lake and also what other Finger Lakes? And then from there, we wanted to see the impact on the snail population due to references from Dr. Chris Panuto. And then from there, we wanted to see consumption of Hemimysis anomala because previous literature said they're not that prevalent in the round goby diet. But from that research, we thought there could be room that they could potentially eat them, just we did not know about it yet. And then, of course, running back up, we go back into the come full circle around the impacts of the round goby. So first, are the round gobies present? So for our real diagram we used, we went through the Finger Lakes and said, okay, we're going to try and focus on Seneca and Cayuga Lakes, as Seneca is the main lake that we're trying to see if they're invading or not, and Cayuga Lake is our source population, which we know was invaded. Cayuga Lake, we found, does have a completely steady population that is fully established, as there are young there, so they are a fully reproducing population. And the way we tested was via minnow traps and fishing. Minnow traps consisted of chicken liver and dog food as our two main baits, but then also a concoction of crushed zebra mussels and Canadian crawlers in a clam bag to make sure the worms don't escape, as they are another invasive. So we used this to model where they are and what we could find, and from what we found, they are at the locks CS2 and CS3 along the Seneca-Cayuga Canal. That is their blocking point as of now, well, at least the mass of the individuals are. But the unique thing about this is it is one of the only combined block systems, which really surprised me, interestingly. So, that was an interesting little fact. But furthermore, we decided to test around Seneca Lake. We tested the northern end, mainly because this is where the invasion would likely occur from, unless somebody just randomly dropped one in the lake, which is potentially possible. But the reason this all originated was the DEC 3 years ago did a full Seneca Lake study of what species are present, and they did not find any evidence of round gobies. However, there are local landowners that were saying, speculating that they did see evidence of them. But as we can see, they're similar to most native species. Like if you see the back of it, some people easily confuse it with either a garter or a sculpin. The identifying characteristics, of course, are the black spot on the dorsal fin and the fused pelvic fin. Those are the two identifying characteristics, but if you're not looking for them, you're not going to find them, as well as the pelvic fin. You can't really see that from above the water. So you're looking down and you just see a rough shape, basically. So, moved on to our snail preferences. The way we did this was we did two types of tanks, a control tank and a tank with gravel and rock as like a natural habitat for the snails to attach to, and the round gobies to be able to burrow in as they usually do. And then we also had a recovery tank, basically putting only snails, gravel, and rock in to make sure we could recover all the snails we had. So from that, we looked at the presence of gravel and rock habitat and how that will affect affect round gobies' consumption of snails. From what we found is rock and gravel is actually more successful. We're thinking this is because the snails were able to attach to the surface, like the rocks and the gravel, and the round gobies were able to prey on them a little bit easier, whereas control tanks, the round gobies did not feel at home, as we determined, because you can see their behaviors changing. They basically sat still and never actually fully moved. Also, their pelvic fin was a little bit worn down because it was a 2-hour experiment. Their pelvic fin was a little worn down, degraded, so it seemed like they were a little stressed as well. So then we also looked at if a preference exists for families, and we did find this, and it was mainly Physidae. However, there are other preferences that we could also go by is size, as well as general softness of the shell, as Physidae was the softest family we could find that we used. However, Pleurosauridae were quite long in our experiments, so if we found smaller individuals, they could potentially eat those as well. So we'd like to rerun some of those trials to make sure we're actually a selection for family, not size or softness of the shell. So then, through these experiments, what we found was, of course, the crushed snail shell, as a round goby usually is a muscivore, it crushes its prey. But another weird piece of evidence we found was a whole snail shell. Now, according to Wooten 1991, molluscivores could have 3 different potential ways to consume mussels or snails or anything with a hard shell. And one would be to crush it and consume it. And another one could be it attaches to it and sucks the flesh out of the shell, leaving a whole shell. So this is one of the previous first evidences of seeing a potential new consumption method by round gobies for other prey items. And then, yes. We also did a stomach analysis just to double check, as this flesh could have been somehow, either the snail could have just died and the round goby did not consume it, but we went through and tested it, and we did find flesh in every area that we saw, either a snail missing, a snail shell broken as such on top, or a snail shell that was empty. So then we move on to our hemimysis experiment. Through this, we looked at previous literature and found Fitzsimons et al., 2011, had zero hemimysis in round goby stomachs, except in their deep water location, which they found 3 individuals with them, and 2 individuals had 1 hemimysis in their stomach each, and 1 individual had 5 hemimysis. However, they concluded that this probably was not a very high preference in their diet. But from that, we also started looking at Langtree et al. 2010, which found no hemimysis in any round goby stomachs. So we thought, could they have, is there a potential for them to consume them? So we decided to do a tank experiment with this as well. And then our main experiment was putting cobble down where, of course, hemimysis stay in the cobble and then have a dial vertical migration up during the night. And round gobies are night predators / they are benthic, and they don't have a swim bladder, so they're already on the bottom of the water floor. So from that, we assumed hemimysis would come out, and round gobies potentially could have a easier access either during the day or the night, depending. Of course, round gobies cannot really swim into the water column, but some new literature is suggesting they possibly can. And then through that, we decided to do we ran a 2-hour experiment, well, 1 hour and 45 minutes, as there was daylight. We did it 30 minutes before before sunset to 30 minutes before sunset to 45 minutes after civil twilight. And then from there, we had these results over here. We could see that the 60 to 69 individuals actually consumed a significantly higher rate than the rest of them, which was surprising. But the bigger thing that we found was, as we did these first trials in June, we thought, yes, they're consuming them, this is a great sign. But we also thought, we'll repeat it in September. As you can see, compared from June to September, rates were nowhere near as usual. So we thought, there must be a seasonality effect to it. And through another literature search, we found that round gobies are getting significantly more seasonal diets. So chironomids are usually, like when chironomids are becoming into a full population, that's when round gobies basically consume a lot of them. The same could be said for the hemimysis as well. So we also had a few more questions attached to this, which was the presence of cobble will not affect the rate of hemimysis consumption, as we also had control tanks with this. And as you can see, they're actually pretty close, as basically even. I believe the p-value was 0.937. So, as you can see, they're generally equal, so there was no effect of the cobble on constraining round gobies to consume. So then, just for a double check, we decided to do a stomach analysis, just to make sure. We assumed, yes, these hemimysis, as we put 60 in a tank for 2 hours, we thought it should be okay. And we thought, what is the primary consumption method? Where are these going? We think they're going in the stomachs, but we decided to do it as a double check, and we did find hemimysis in the stomachs. And this individual over here, if I stand corrected, there should be 14 individuals there. And then we were measuring it via the carapace of the hemimysis, making sure that that was our identifying characteristic. And then furthermore, we found that every individual except one had hemimysis in its stomach, and that individual was in a control tank, so we weren't really sure exactly what happened with that. And then, so conclusions, rolling back through. The round goby is present in the Seneca-Cayuga Canal, and most likely it is not in Seneca Lake. And we furthered this by going to Oneida Lake and doing a quick test drop of a trap just to make sure we can get individuals in our traps after 24-hour soaks. And we found that yes, they do enter the traps, so we can solidly say that Seneca Lake is most likely not infested with round gobies yet. However, there is still a chance that individuals could be up before the invasion front that we really noticed. We only saw the bulk of the population. They also have a preference for twice-a-day snails. However, this could be likely to change if we try size preferences, or snail shell hardness as well as another characteristic. There's evidence of a new consumption method, so if any other new prey items occur, they could potentially be consuming other things that you don't really know about. And then also there's a highly variable consumption rate on H. anomala, which presents a more seasonal consumption rate of different prey. I would like to say thank you to Dr. Richard, who is in the back, for being on my honors committee, as well as Dr. Megan Brown, the HWS Biology Department, and all the people who helped me as well. And also thank you to my funding sources from HWS, and also outside of that, and also thank you for the Plum Spindler. And also a final huge thank you to my honors advisor and research mentor, Dr. Susan Cushman. Thank you for all you've done for me. And my references as well. Thank you.
Questions for Nolan?
So we've experimented with a number of different methods for catching goby in the Barge Canal on the east side of Oneida Lake, and minnow traps are one of them, and we're using a mixture of dog food and Colby Jack cheese, because that's what we'd read in the literature that a lot of people were using, and name brand too, not knockoff stuff. we have had just terrible experiences catching them with our minnow traps. I mean, compared to staining or trawling or eDNA, the minnow traps are just performing terribly for us. We've got the same standard, minnow traps that you're showing there, and I don't have a clue why they're performing so badly. Do you have any? I mean, you've been happy with the performance of yours?
Well, saying that through all the traps we've actually set, no, because we didn't find any round gobies in any of the Seneca Canal or the lake. It was basically a true one drop only. Let it soak for 24 hours. We pulled it up. There were, I think, one trap in the lake had one round goby, and one trap had, I think, two.
Right.
But they were also really small individuals as well. So we can't really say to the effectiveness of it. But from other literature I found in, especially Canadian research, they were trying to do more acoustic traps and see if anything, acoustic and pheromone traps, and see if they could track them that way.
Okay.
And it's promising, but I'm not sure how far the research is going.
Thank you.
This is more of a comment to the exact thing, as one of the Canadians. Interesting. The dog food works really, really well for us. But just out of curiosity, I threw a minnow trap with a big circular tank, and I know a lot of people say they can get out with minnow traps as well. So they'll go in, but they can find their way out as well. So it kind of throws a little bit of a wrench and some of that stuff. But the dog food is my go-to anyway. I don't see Hobart as my go-to for
I figured if they were getting out, the trap would be cleaned, because usually when you got a lot of fish going through, I mean.
Well, they all don't get out, but they can.
Right,
Yeah.
but I mean, we pull ours up and it's still full of dog food.
Oh.
Yeah, so.
Anyone else? Great, thank you. Quick announcement, there was a gray scarf found in one of the rooms, and that's at the registration table. So if that was your scarf, be sure to pick it up. Continuing in our theme of great undergraduate goby presentations and travel award